is happening. I mean, my goodness, for them to be talking about removing even the semblance of division between a central bank that's supposed to be independent and a government, they're talking about removing that. That's a flippin' big deal. That is huge. That is huge because they're grasping at straws. But the asset purchases of this magnitude has been a boost to GDP of roughly 1 to 2% for those economies, meaning the US and the Eurozone. Euro area. Are you kidding me? So when they say, oh, debt to GDP, when they're creating debt to grow the GDP by suppressing the interest rates, I can't make this up. This is insane. And this is dangerous. It's dangerous. I'm telling you, everybody that's watching this, everybody that's not watching this, because there's certainly a lot more people not watching this than are watching this, we need to share this information. How many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? You know the truth. You know the truth now. That's what's going to happen. This next crisis, all gloves are off, and you're going to see central banks pump so much. You think that what they did before and what the government did before was big? It's going to look like chump change, just like what they did in 2020 made what they did in 2008, which was outrageous. For those of us that were around and remember that, was outrageous that they would have pumped that much money into the banking system. It's nothing compared to what they're doing. And what's the impact? Well, look at the inflation. Phoenix, I just heard this morning. Phoenix has the highest level inflation for month-to-month inflation for the country, 13%. Shocker. And because we've got a little bit of relief at the gas pump, people are going, phew. Well, no, because services are now soaring. So core inflation is rising much faster. That's why, well, when I checked shortly before I went on here, we saw the Dow down like almost 1,300 points. I don't know where it is at the moment. I don't know where it's going to end up. But, you know, the system's falling apart. And I really, really, really hope that you can see that. Because the Fed's asset purchases boosted the GDP by 2%. We have had no growth. It's been all government induced between inflation and them buying the bonds. Give me a break. But wait a minute. Aren't they trying to run off their balance sheet now? Minuscule. It's minuscule because they can't do it. If they sell, you know, what happens to interest rates? I mean, this is a debt-based system, right? They sell, pushes interest rates up. Interest rates go up, principal of the bond goes down, right? We've had, since the 1980s, we've had this pushing down on the interest rates. So we were in a massive bull market in bonds. Well, that's the biggest market that there is other than the derivatives. That's the scariest market that there is because those are just big unsubstantiated bets. It's not like you can convert them into the underlying asset. And they control everything now. And I've been saying this right along, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. That's the biggest threat because those are all just leverage upon leverage upon leverage, which means debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. And when that whole pyramid scheme implodes, you better have your gold and silver, and you better have your food, your water, everything so that you can be as independent and self-sufficient as possible. You know, please, I can't encourage you more to move forward. If you've been, you know, kind of dragging your feet, this is not a good time to do that. Policy support thus remains essential in many economies, so they have to keep printing money. They are behind a rock and a hard place. Between. Providing such policy support is complicated by the fact that conventional policy space has greatly diminished because we're anchored at zero, and you've got the balance sheet at nosebleed levels. They have shot all of it. Fiscal policy is also facing its own set of constraints. Public debt levels have seen a sharp rise across regions during the pandemic, as we saw in that graph. Most countries now have debt levels that are well above what they were in the past. Oh, what a shock. Oh my gosh, well, why don't they just keep printing money? Because we're going to do, there's no choice. Interest rates were already low in many advanced economies prior to the COVID-19 crisis, and this limited the ability of central banks to reduce them further. I mean, they tried, they went through all those negative rates since 2019, and now, because they're so aggressively raising interest rates, they're now at zero. They already saw lowering them as much as they didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't stimulate the economy. The economy, everything died in 2008. And for most people, you know, I hate to say this, but a lot of people have not recouped or regained all those lost years. And this one's going to be way worse because all that crap that they used to prop it up, this is what they're talking about. Didn't work, and now it's going to be unleashed. Let's see. Most countries now, did that. Interest rates were already low. The forceful response in emerging markets has seen a large number of emerging market central banks run into similar issues. So in other words, they were able to keep their interest rates up a little higher, but the whole world used to be 90% of the advanced economies were anchored near zero. And what they're saying is even emerging markets that typically have to pay higher interest rates to attract money to them, even they have had to push the interest rates down somewhere near zero, or certainly lower than what they're used to. The EU, after the biggest interest rate increase ever, is now at zero. The blue are advanced economies. The orange, or burnt orange, probably a better term for it, are emerging markets. Look at how many of them since 2016, and ZLB is zero lower bound. Look at how many of even the emerging markets are now anchored somewhere near zero. That used to be just the area of advanced economies. This is Japan, okay? But these are the rest of the world, advanced economies. Europe, Great Britain, the US, Switzerland, on and on. The scenario assumes that there is limited monetary policy space because the central bank's policy rate is predicted to be at the effective ELB, effective lower bound, for an extended period, which also compresses long-term yield. How long have I been talking about the yield curve inversion? Because I'm pretty sure the 20 and 30 year converted in, I think I started talking about that in January. Might have been last November, December, but I'm pretty sure it was January. And then I said at that time, now you wait, because it always starts at the longer end and then it works its way out. I saw the 2-year Treasury yield today, almost 4%. We've been inverted for a while. This is not going to end well. But this also limits the effectiveness of unconventional monetary policy, UMP, tools such as quantitative easing and forward guidance. They're out of tools. I've been saying that forever, and now they're saying it themselves. They're out of tools. That's why they have to lift that veil and really cross a boundary that is typically taboo, at least in perception-wise, and have central banks working with governments. Oh, oh. Do you trust any of them? I mean, I should have really done this again this morning, but you can see this is the 10-year, the 2-year, and the 30-year. And I mean, it remains inverted at a really high level, and it is just not a good thing. It is not a good thing. That debt, all that mountain of debt is rolling over into a higher interest rate environment because smart people, when they rolled over their higher interest rate debt into lower interest rate debt, would maybe not have taken on even more debt. But hey, if the payment stays the same and I can double my debt because the interest is so low, why not? That's what a lot of corporations did. And we're about to see a massive rolling over. And all those zombie corporations, a zombie corporation has been unable to pay all of the interest on their debt. Forget the principal. That's not even a pipe dream. For at least 3 years. 3 years. And banks not wanting to show this loss on their books just kept loaning them money to pay the interest on the debt. And so what happens? The debt grows and grows and grows, even if they're not buying something new with it. And here you see the central banks making an attempt to run off their nosebleed level balance sheets. Well, here's the Fed, barely moving, right? The ECB is faster, and so is the Bank of Japan, but you know, they're all trying to do it. That's the PBOC, so the Chinese central bank right there. Yeah, when central banks reduce their balance sheets, prices of those government bonds, whether they're treasuries or whatever, and mortgage-backed securities go down as interest rate goes up. The principal go down as interest rates go up. Can they really sell off all that crap that they bought and they've been buying? They've been buying to keep everything looking normal? Can they really do that? No, they can't. No, they can't. They can't sell off their balance sheet and raise interest rates into this kind of environment. They can't do it, period. They can't do it. Lots and lots and lots of unintended consequences will emerge. And this is called, I thought this was great, a Zuzwang central banking. And this happens to be the ECB edition, but let me tell you, this is applicable to every single central bank. I love that term, Zuzwang, because what it really means is that you're boxed in by reality. And, you know, at the end of the day, the truth always comes out, maybe not in the way that you wanted it to. And that's what's happening to global central banks and government. Zuzwang is the German word for a situation in chess and life in which a move must be made, so they got to do something, but each possible one will make the situation worse. It also captures perfectly the predicament facing central banks in Europe. But I got to tell you, perfectly any central bank, just not in Europe. They're just a little bit ahead of us because of what's happening over there. But this is true for all of them. Take the ECB, the poster child for Zuzwang, central banking. It has 4 possible moves. Now, let's see if any of these moves kind of sound similar to you from any central bank in the world. Raising interest rates, which they're all doing, and they have to. Quantitative tightening, so rolling off their balance sheets, which they're attempting. Holding rates steady, so not doing anything with rates. And admitting regime defeat. Are they going to admit defeat? No. But are you going to pay the price for it? Frankly, that's entirely up to you. You can make a choice to do nothing. And if you make that choice, you know, that's okay. Everybody gets to make the choices of whatever they feel comfortable with. And this may seem insane to you, but take a look at the fact that they are talking about removing that veil of independence from the central banks and the governments. That scares the bejeebies out of me. Does it scare the bejeebies out of you? Because every single time that they have done that leads to hyperinflation. Duh. Are you ready for that? So what I love about gold, honestly, besides the physical nature of it, and silver too, you got to have both. I don't know what I did with my silver dollar, but you got to have both. But here's the thing. This is real. Okay? This is made up by the central banks. Okay? This is more convenient. This is less convenient. But this is used across every single sector of the global economy, so you always have demand. And I know I tell you that all the time. I just really wanted to sink in. So forgive me for being redundant. But when the central bank raises interest rates, that attracts money to the dollar. And so then Wall Street, in their infinite greed, push the spot price, the contract price of gold down. Central banks are buying it hand over fist. Dollar dips. When you hear them talk about a strong dollar, that's relative to another currency. This is what's most important, that you have the broadest base of functionality, the broadest base of demand. Physical gold in your possession protects you from default and contagion risk. And let me tell you, it will not be pretty for most people. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community and shelter. Please, please, now is not the time to hesitate. If you haven't started your strategy, please get it done. If you have started your strategy but you haven't finished it yet, please get it done. I'm really happy to tell you that up on my little farm, we're able to move forward with the hothouses now. We had a little glitch. You know what happens. The sooner you get started, the sooner you get finished. If you have a glitch, you got a minute to work through that glitch to get it done. And we also got our mighty mitigators. In other words, a whole bunch of goats for fire mitigation. And they're doing a great job. Boy, those goats can eat that grass like crazy. So, you know, I cannot encourage you enough, but you need to be sharing this. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because this is the kind of material that I like to bring to you the most, is when these changes come out, but they're hidden. How many people read the IMF working papers and they can say, oh, well, that's just a working paper, it does matter. Yeah, it does, because what it tells you is what the IMF is thinking of. And the IMF has 189 members, Treasury secretaries, central bank chiefs. Well, let's see. Neither one of them are elected, but they're already working together, government and central banks. There really isn't the division. There's just that perception of division. And when this next crisis hits and becomes apparent to everybody, all veils come off, all gloves come off, and we're in just massively deep doo-doo. Massively deep. You have a choice at this point on how you walk through that. So, you know, on Tuesday, I'm going to talk to you about my presentation on employment and the Fed fighting inflation. But if you have not already done so, please get your gold and silver strategy started. Just give us a call, click that Calendly link below, have a conversation with one of our consultants. It's going to be geared to you, your goals, your circumstance. But the sooner you start, the closer you get. Like, I was lucky. Oh my God, I had a mango from one of my little trees today, and it was so sweet. And aside from the flavor, which was incredible, but part of it was the sooner you plant a tree, the sooner you get to eat from it. And I didn't have to go to the grocery store to get those mangoes. I just went out in my yard. Well, actually, Laura and Lindsay, who you meet on BGS, picked it for me from my yard. Delicious. Please start. If you haven't started, get started. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up. share, 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 especially